I never expected a simple warning to change my life. Then the luxury car arrived at my door. The day started like any other. The sun filtered through my window, casting soft golden rays across the floor. I could hear the faint call of birds outside. But deep inside me, a storm was brewing. I had just received a cryptic note from an unknown sender. "Prepare for what's coming," it read. My heart raced. What did it mean? Who sent this? Sitting at my kitchen table, my hands trembled as I crumpled the paper into a tight ball. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and curiosity. I glanced at the clock, its ticking seemed louder than ever. My best friend, Mia, would be over soon. She always had a way of soothing my worries, a calming presence amidst chaos. But today, the chaos felt different, more tangible. The doorbell rang, jolting me from my thoughts. I took a deep breath and opened the door, a smile plastered on my face. But there was no smiling back. Mia stood there wide-eyed, breathless, and pale. It was as if she had seen a ghost. "You'll never believe what just happened," she gasped, stepping into the house. My heart dropped. What could possibly be worse than the note? "Mia, just tell me," I urged. "There was a crash, a car crash, a black luxury car, and it had your name on it." She spoke with urgency as if each word could unravel my sanity. I stared at her, disbelief settling in my chest. Could this be some twisted coincidence or, worse, a threat? Mia was shaking now, her voice trembling. As it crashed, I saw the driver get out. It was someone we both know. The air in the room felt charged, thick with unsaid words. I felt the blood rush from my face. Who could it be? Why did they crash? Why was I involved? We exchanged frantic glances, the silence stretching heavy around us. "We need to find out what's going on," I whispered, my heart pounding like a war drum. But as we raced to the window to see if the car remained there, it was gone. Just like that, the mystery deepened. What was I supposed to do now? My mind spiraled. The warning, the crash, it was all linked somehow. "Mia, I need you to stay with me." I felt a knot form in my throat. We weren't safe. Not anymore. The day descended into chaos, but in the midst of it, a single thought consumed me. Was this the beginning of something bigger? Something that would change everything I knew? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The sunlight began to dim, casting elongated shadows in my living room. The sense of impending danger wrapped around me like a thick fog. I paced back and forth, my mind racing with 1,000 questions. "You didn't see who the driver was?" I asked Mia, desperation creeping into my voice. She shook her head, the tremor in her hands betraying her calm facade. "No, I just saw them get out and run away, but it felt like they were trying to get away from something, like they were afraid." Her blue eyes mirrored my own anxiety, revealing depths of concern I had barely begun to recognize in myself. As much as I wanted to unravel this mystery, I also felt a primal instinct to protect myself and the ones I loved. "Mia, do you think we should call the police?" The thought of involving authorities sent a wave of unease through me. What if it was all connected to something bigger, something I wasn't ready to face? She nodded slowly, the decision weighing heavy on her. "Maybe. But what if they're not the ones we need protection from?" That thought echoed in my mind, each word ringing like a distant bell. I suddenly felt trapped in a web of secrets, and the more we probed, the more tangled we might become. A sudden knock broke the tension, sending us both flinching towards the door. "Who could that be?" Mia whispered, her previous resolve shaken. My heart raced again as I took tentative steps towards the entrance. Peeking through the peephole, I was met with the familiar face of Mrs. Harrison, the elderly woman from next door. Clutching a basket of freshly baked cookies, she looked concerned yet warm. I hesitated for a moment before opening the door, her kind presence offering a glimmer of comfort amid the chaos. "Oh, dear. It smells so lovely in here," she smiled, "but you both look like you've seen a ghost. Is everything all right?" Mia and I exchanged a glance, the weight of the note and the crash still heavy in the air. We're fine, Mrs. Harrison," I said, forcing a smile that felt thin and brittle. "Just a bit overwhelmed today." "Well, I brought you cookies. Thought you might need a pick-me-up," she said, her smile warm and genuine. As I accepted the basket, I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude. In the midst of uncertainty, her small act of kindness felt like a light in the dark. "Thank you, really. They look amazing," I murmured, still acutely aware of the undercurrent of fear swirling around us. "Would you like to come in for a moment?" Just as she stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted again. Another loud noise echoed outside, a shout followed by the sound of tires screeching against asphalt. Heart in my throat, I rushed to the window, pulling the curtain aside. A figure was running down the street, their silhouette frantic against the backdrop of dusk. "Who is that?" Mia whispered, her voice strained. My pulse quickened as I realized the form looked eerily familiar. "Isn't that?" "No, it can't be," I breathed, my mind churning with disbelief. A face from my past, someone I thought I'd never see again. As I pressed my forehead against the glass, a sight that should have brought comfort instead filled me with dread. Suddenly, the figure stumbled and fell, the cookies I had just accepted slipped through my fingers and crashed to the floor, scattering chocolate chips like dark stars across the tile. "Mia, I think we need to go outside." Even as I spoke, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I was about to step into a world I wasn't sure I was ready for, with more answers than questions, and everything hinged on that silhouette racing away from me. The reckoning was coming, but I could already feel the distance closing in, like the grip of destiny tightening around my very being. Would we stand there and wait for it to reach us, or would we chase after not just the mystery but the truths buried deep within ourselves? Just as I made up my mind, I heard a voice calling out from the street, desperate and pleading. "Help me. Please." With that, the gravity of the moment pulled me forward, and I knew we were on the precipice of something vast and unknown. The moment I stepped outside, a chill enveloped me as the evening air grew eerily still. The world around us felt suspended, as if holding its breath, waiting for something profound to unfold. The cries for help felt like a siren piercing through the fog of my fear. I motioned for Mia to stay close as we moved cautiously towards the figure sprawled on the ground. That it was him, Jacob. I hadn't seen him in years, the memories of our shared youth were wrapped in a haze of nostalgia and regret. But the sight before me was not the Jacob I once knew. His clothes were torn, dirt smeared across his face, and his eyes, usually so vibrant, were now clouded with panic. "Please." He gasped, trying to push himself up against the curb. "I'm not safe. They're coming." What happened? I knelt next to him, my heart heavy with a mix of affection and dread. "Who's coming?" He winced and glanced over his shoulder, his breaths coming quick and shallow. I saw them. I didn't want to believe it. "They're back, and they know I'm here. You have to help me." Each word seemed to tear at his throat, desperation clawing through his voice. Mia crouched beside me, her expression shifting from fear to something more complex, empathy underlined with a tinge of uncertainty. "Jacob, how do you know they're after you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They think I saw too much," he replied, shaking his head as if trying to free himself from a tormenting memory. "There was a deal gone wrong. I'm just a pawn. They'll come for anyone close to me." A sick feeling twisted in my stomach. I remembered the wild rumors from our teenage years about the underground dealings in our town, whispers of power, money, and betrayal. Jacob was pulled into that world, chasing shadows, but I never thought it would ensnare him completely. "Jacob, listen to me," I said, my voice steady, trying to anchor him. "You need to come inside. We can help you." The warmth of my home suddenly felt like a sanctuary, a stark contrast to the chaos unraveling outside, but before he could respond, a black car came into view at the end of the street, engines roaring, headlights piercing through the isolation of night. "It's them!" Jacob cried out, his panic flushing through me like ice. "We need to go now." Mia and I exchanged a horrified look, the realization dawning our lives, already touched by fear, were on the precipice of spiraling deeper into danger. Panic clawed at my chest, but I forced it down. "Get up, Jacob. We have to move now." As I helped him to his feet, the sound of tires screeching cut through the darkness, sending a flurry of dread washing over us. The car seemed to hover, poised like a predator ready to pounce. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out rational thought. Suddenly Mrs. Harrison's voice broke through the chaos. "What's happening? Is everything all right?" The elderly woman remained firmly rooted at the doorway, her face a mixture of confusion and concern. "Get inside, Mrs. Harrison," I shouted, urgency fueling my voice. But she remained hesitant, those sparkling blue eyes now clouded with uncertainty, as if sensing the monumental shift about to unfold. "Please, it's not safe." Before she could react, the figure emerged from the car, a man in a sharply tailored suit, entirely too calm for the circumstances. He scanned the street with a predatory gaze. "Jacob," he called out, his voice smooth yet dripping with menace. "You can't run forever. You need to come with us.no." Jacob shouted, stumbling back, pulling me and Mia closer. His terror was contagious, washing over me like a crippling wave. I fought to stay composed, to shield Mia from this unrelenting chaos. But my resolve fractured as Mrs. Harrison stepped outside, an unexpected boldness igniting in her. "What is going on here?" she demanded, facing the slick newcomer. Despite the fear gripping my heart, the sight of her standing up filled me with an unexpected flicker of hope. "Stay inside, Mrs. Harrison," I called, but she shook her head defiantly. "No. I won't let you take him," she declared, every word laced with the strength of her AGE.AS. The man's lips curved into a sinister smirk. I realized this was far more than a plea for protection. Mrs. Harrison's fierce loyalty echoed against the sheer terror around us and ignited a spark. Perhaps, just perhaps, not everyone was willing to fade into the background. But before I could grasp the significance of the moment, Jacob rattled the grip of my hand. "We have to go," he urged, his gaze flicking toward the advancing figure, desperation clawing at his voice. I nodded, but in that moment, something broke. A harsh command cut through the air, and as Mia screamed and pulled me back, I turned to see Mrs. Harrison standing her ground, defiance lighting her old features, an unexpected guardian in our darkest hour. "Jacob, run!" I yelled as the tension snapped, but as we made a break for it, my eyes lingered on that troubling face, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening would change everything, not just for Jacob, but for all of us. And before I could process it, the man spoke, voice echoing in the silence like a thunderclap. "You should have stayed hidden, Jacob. Now, you've put everyone at risk." In that moment, the fragile thread of hope unraveled, twisting chaos around us like a tightening noose, and I felt the weight of the world crash down. This was only the beginning. The night unfolded like a nightmare as we stumbled down the darkened street, Jacob's breath quickening beside me, the weight of his fear pressing against my chest. Each hurried step echoed in my mind, mingling with the whispers of regret and unspoken words that clung to the air between us like smoke. Our past, once innocent and carefree, now tangled with shadows and secrets that we can't go back, Jacob panted, his eyes darting nervously over his shoulder, scanning for any sign of their pursuit. "We shouldn't have stopped. You have to believe me." "It's going to be okay," I said, though the tremor in my voice belied my confidence. Mia was gripping my arm, her small frame trembling as she struggled to process the chaotic turn of events. I glanced at her, searching for courage. "Well, figure something out, we just need to keep moving." The streetlights flickered above us, casting eerie shadows that danced in frustration with every gust of wind. It felt as if the very world was conspiring against us, a macabre performance meant to frighten us into submission. Yet I felt that glint of defiance within me, a simmering resolve to protect Mia and Jacob, no matter how heavy the burden, but the weight of my duty tugged at my heart. I could sense the desperation curling around Jacob, threatening to suffocate him. "What have you seen?" I dared to ask, my curiosity igniting beneath the layers of fear. "What did you get mixed up in?" His gaze dropped, filled with a swirling mix of shame and pain that pierced my heart. "I thought I was being smart," he said, the tremor in his voice telling me this was more than just youthful foolishness. "I got in too deep with the wrong people, and I saw things I saw." His voice broke as if the weight of his confession was far too great to bear. He hesitated, fear reflecting in his eyes. "I saw someone my throat constricted. The gravity of his words hung in the air, a leaden weight that tugged at the edges of my sanity. I felt a surge of anger, not towards him, but towards the fate that had entangled him in such darkness. "We can help you. We can figure this out together," I insisted, trying to soothe him, though questions whirled through my mind like uninvited guests at a funeral. Before his response could emerge, a piercing scream ripped through the silence. "Mia!" My heart dropped as I turned towards her, only to see the dark vehicle from earlier reversing with malicious intent, its headlights sweeping across the street, illuminating the fear-stricken faces of my friends. "Get behind me!" I shouted, urgency seeping into my bones as I shoved Jacob in front of me, instinct taking over. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me stronger than ever, propelling us forward, urging us to escape the clutches of the unknown. "Go!" I hissed, pushing Mia and Jacob down a side alley, away from the piercing gaze of their pursuit. The narrow passage seemed to constrict around us, darkness enveloping us in a cold embrace. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, cloaked in shadows, with every heartbeat drum echoing in my ears. "We have to get to the old train station," I whispered. "If they find us, we can't be in open sight." As I glanced back, I caught a glimpse of a figure exiting the car, but not the man I'd expected. Instead, a woman with dark hair cascading around her shoulders emerged, her posture radiating confidence. She scanned the area as if searching for something or someone specific. "Who is that?" Mia asked, her voice a fragile whisper, teetering on the edge of panic. "Someone who might be able to help us," Jacob spoke slowly, his gaze pinning me with newfound intensity. "Or someone who might have been sent to find me." I felt a cold chill snaking its way down my spine. The web was growing thicker, and I had a terrible feeling that this woman held keys to a truth we were all far too unprepared to face. We stumbled into the alley, and as I pressed against the graffiti-laden brick wall, I felt the familiar sensation of claustrophobia too close for comfort. Fear radiated from Jacob, tightening my chest as I strained to listen. Then, the unexpected happened. The darkness amplified into silence, and we could hear footsteps. Closer. I pulled Mia closer, praying that somehow, someway, we could find a way out of this mess. The woman's voice floated through the thin veil of anxiety that surrounded us. "Jacob," she called, her tone eerily calm, yet dangerously laced with urgency. "You can't hide forever. You know what you have to do." My heart lurched as I realized Jacob recognized her, the flicker of fear in his eyes like a candle ignited. "It's not safe. You shouldn't be here," he shouted, but desperation tinged his voice with a plea. "She's your only chance," I murmured to him, the words slipping out before I could contain them. The storm brewing inside me grew chaotic. Could this woman be a saving grace, or would she lead us deeper into the abyss? But as I grappled with the fear clawing at my mind, Jacob's expression shifted, uncertainty battling with something I hadn't seen in a long time: determination. "I have to face this. I can't keep running," he muttered, his gaze veering back towards the mouth of the alley. No. I hissed, panic surging through me like a drudget electrified every nerve. "You can't be serious. We don't know her. We can't trust anyone. I have to know the truth," he insisted, the resolution etched in his features like a permanent mark. As the stranger's figure loomed just beyond our reach, Jacob took a step forward, my heart pounding furiously in protest. tearing me between the instinct to protect him and the undeniable pull of his courage. It was then, amidst the cacophony of fear and uncertainty, that we were thrust into a moment for which none of us were prepared, an awakening flood of revelation and consequence, threatening to unravel the fragile threads we had barely managed to build, and just as I opened my mouth to protest, a familiar voice pierced through the tension, echoing through the alleyway like a death knell. "Mrs. Harrison. What are you doing?" she called, her voice packed with protective authority, cementing the weight of our choices right then and there. My heart seized, and the world fell silent. Everything felt suspended in that instantaneous moment, as I struggled to grasp the magnitude of what was about to happen. The choices we were making were leading us down a path from which none of us might return. I had to wonder, could hope and defiance truly emerge from the darkness we were teetering on? Or would it devour everything in its wake? The alley grew colder, the air thickening with uncertainty, as Mrs. Harrison stepped forward, her silhouette casting a long shadow across the rough pavement. Her presence brought a strange mixture of relief and added turmoil. She couldn't possibly know everything that had unfolded, yet I felt the weight of her gaze blend with the surging fear surrounding us. "Jacob, what are you doing with them?" she demanded, glancing between me, Mia, and the potential savior or predator advancing beyond us. Panic tightened its grip around my chest as I wondered how much she knew. "Mrs. Harrison, please." Jacob's voice was shaky but resolute, laced with a fear that mingled painfully with yearning. "You don't understand. I have to find out the truth, the truth." She echoed incredulously, shaking her head as her sharp gaze locked onto his. "And at what cost, Jacob? You can't just run back to that world." "Believe me, I know what I'm doing," Jacob interrupted, a trembling edge to his voice. "The only way to feel safe is if I confront what I've been running from." Instinctively, I reached for him, heart and mind waging war, desperate to anchor him to the present. "They're looking for you. What you saw, it could put all of us in danger. We can't take that chance." My plea felt futile, drowning beneath the weight of secrets only Jacob seemed ready to face, but understanding flickered in Jacob's eyes, filled with an unexpected depth of longing for the truth he felt was entwined with his very heart. As much as I protested, I knew his resolve. It was a fire that could not be easily quenched. Mia, on the other hand, was wide-eyed, her breath coming out in rapid gasps as she turned toward Mrs. Harrison, confusion playing across her delicate features. "Who is she? Why should we trust you?" Her small frame trembled, a stark reminder of the innocent daylight that had been stolen from us. Mrs. Harrison's expression softened momentarily as she addressed Mia. "You don't need to trust anyone blindly, sweet girl. But sometimes, when we're trapped in darkness, the first step toward light is to take the risk to confront it." "What are you risking?" I shot back, genuine frustration coursing through my veins. "What do you know?" She hesitated, and that moment felt heavy, as if the truth she held was capable of shattering worlds or binding hearts. "I know Jacob's past, just as I know it's haunting him. The people he's involved with, they won't let him go without a fight." Jacob's breath quickened. "So you know their names?" "Yes." Her gaze bore into mine, profound regret lurking in the recesses of her expression. "And I know what they're capable of." I felt dizzy, grappling with the conflicting emotions awash in the bleakness of the alley. "Then help us," I urged. "We need a plan. How do we escape this?" A look of contemplation flickered in her eyes. "There's a way, but it involves trusting me," she said slowly, her voice imbued with intent. "I need you all to leave with me now. The longer we linger here, the more dangerous this becomes." A looming dread hung between us. There was no denying that the looming threat was real. We had only to listen to the footsteps echoing close, an auditory reminder of the abyss pursuing us. "Jacob," I whispered, desperate to pull him from the brink. "Don't do this. We can still find another way." "I can't run anymore," he blurted out, emotion cracking through him. "I have to face it, even if it means losing everything." The strength of his conviction startled me, piercing straight through the layers of fear that wrapped around us. I felt my heart clench in response, torn between an unshakable need to protect him and the pressing realization that perhaps he had more courage than any of us ever could. At that moment, Mrs. Harrison's phone buzzed audibly in the eerie silence, pulling us from the brink of the decision that teetered above us. She pulled it from her pocket, the expression on her face shifting to one of grim recognition. "We don't have much time. They're closer than I feared." "Who's coming?" I demanded, panic rising. "What do we do?" "This way," she said urgently, motioning with her hand as she led the way. Deeper into the darkened recesses of the alley, but as we followed her, a sudden noise fractured through the gloomy car door slamming, and then voices, low and menacing. My stomach twisted. We were trapped, our sanctuary closing in. "Run." Mrs. Harrison's voice cut sharply through the onset of chaos. Now, but the weight of uncertainty hung over us like a shroud. As we took off down the alley, I glanced back at Jacob, whose face was illuminated by the flash of headlights from the looming vehicle. In that instant, our eyes locked, and the mixture of dread and determination in his expression sent a chill down my spine, and just as we prepared to sprint into whatever awaited us in the night, a loud crash erupted behind us. Someone had found us, and whatever fragile hope we had of escape was spiraling into the darkness. The world around us condensed into a blur of sound and movement. The moment the crash echoed off the walls, my heart raced in sync with the pounding footsteps that followed. Adrenaline coursed through me, blurring the line between fear and instinct as we veered through the alley, eyes darting for any sign of an exit. "Jacob, please." I could barely hear myself over the cacophony. The metallic tang of terror lodged itself in my throat as I glanced back one more time, searching for some glimmer of reassurance in his wild gaze. But his expression burned with unshed tears, an understanding born of desperation. He was caught between the need to run and the desire to confront whatever awaited us. Mrs. Harrison led us into a narrow passageway that twisted and turned like a serpent, dimly lit by flickering neon signs advertising long-abandoned businesses. Each footfall echoed ominously, amplifying my dread. "This way. We need to get to the old rail yard," she urged, her voice a lifeline amidst the chaos. "Why there?" Mia piped up, her thin shoulders trembling as she struggled to keep pace. "It's a place where they won't expect us, at least not yet," Mrs. Harrison explained, glancing over her shoulder as the echoes of our pursuers reverberated behind us, growing nearer. Mia stumbled, her breath hitching. I reached out to steady her. "Stay close," I whispered, more for my own comfort than hers, wishing I could buffer her gentle spirit from the hard edges of this nightmare. As we rounded a final corner, the faint light of the railway yard cut through the shadows, illuminating the rusting chaos of old cars and crumbling infrastructure. My hope flickered, as uncertain as the distant glow that spilled over the broken tracks. But when I dared a glance back, the mounting dread washed over me. The figures in the distance loomed larger, their silhouettes filled with purpose and expectation. "We won't make it," I gasped, panic rising like bile in my throat. I had never been good at running, and here, in the murky shadows of my fears, I felt myself falter. But Mrs. Harrison was unrelenting, pulling Mia and me forward, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding us. "We will, just stay with me. Trust in the shadows." With one last burst of courage, I pushed forward, sprinting as if every step might buy us a moment of salvation. The clatter of footsteps behind us mingled with my rapidly beating heart, the sounds becoming a relentless reminder of our precarious path. As we broke free into the yard, my gaze swept across the barren expanse before me, but there was no immediate haven in sight. A part of me longed for safety's embrace, a fleeting moment of peace, but the shadows only deepened around us. "Jacob!" Mia cried suddenly, her voice a trembling whisper. My heart stopped, and I turned just in time to see him hesitate at the threshold of the yard. He stood rooted, facing the encroaching darkness behind him with an intensity I'd never seen before. "Jacob, come on!" I urged, terror rising anew. But instead of running, he stepped back, the gravity of his choice pulling him into the depths of the alley. "I have to know, Mia. I can't keep running or hiding. This is my fight." "No!" I shouted, my voice cracking against the sheer force of his determination. "We can figure this out together. Please don't choose this." As he locked eyes with me, a profound silence fell between us, the distance stretching painfully wide. I have to believe that confronting this will bring us the answers we need. I need you to believe that, too. His words hung in the air like smoke, bitter and sweet, and for a moment I could see the light glimmering faintly in his eyes, a resolve that might pierce through our tangled fate. But as the figures rounded the corner, the illusion of hope felt painfully elusive. "Mia, run!" I yelled, as my body propelled itself toward Jacob, an instinct fueled by love and desperation. But before I could reach him, a flash of headlights surged at the entrance of the yard. The gleaming luxury car, a black sentry of the night, had arrived, its engines roaring like thunder, the ominous promise of authority and certainty encapsulated in its structure. What the hell? Jacob's eyes widened, the impact of realization dawning too late. The figures behind us shifted, the shadows casting long spells of dread. In that instant, choices shattered the fragile calm. "You're coming with us, Jacob," a voice I recognized from whispers and shadows sliced through the air, dripping with malice and expectation. "No. Don't!" I screamed, desperation clawing at my throat like broken glass. But the world around us had slanted dangerously, and just like that, before I could grasp onto his hand or hold him back, he was being swallowed by the shadows drifting toward the approaching car. In a heartbeat, chaos erupted. Someone on the other side shouted Jacob's name, ramping up the tension, crashing through the yard. My world narrowed around the realization that everything I had feared was converging on us, the tone of that voice promising things much worse than I could ever imagine. Just as I aimed to run, Mrs. Harrison grabbed my arm with a vice-like grip, anchoring me in place. "We need to make choice right now. Are you with him or with us?" And it hit me, Thina, fierce loyalty coursed through my veins, igniting a fierce defiance as I faced Mrs. Harrison. As the thunder of footsteps closed in and the glowing headlights outlined the shadows converging on us, I choked on my next breath, resisting the lure of darkness with all the strength I had left. "Together," I whispered fiercely, but the shadow cast by the looming car was already swallowing me into its depths as the crumbling world around began to spiral anew. Just like that, I stood at the precipice of uncertainty, teetering on the edge of choices unwritten, as fate unfurled its merciless wings and bore down upon us all. The air hung thick with tension, a tangible weight that wrapped around us like an icy shroud. As flashes of brutality played through my mind, I felt every ounce of resolve within me shatter, leaving only fragments of uncertainty. The luxury car's glow illuminated the fear etched on Mia's and Mrs. Harrison's faces, but I had no time to process their terror. I was anchored firmly to the reality of Jacob's choices, all while an intoxicating urge to retreat pulled at me. "Choose." Mrs. Harrison's voice pierced through the storm of chaos. Now, everything spun as if we were caught in a whirlpool, swirling along with the memories of laughter and secrets, days spent in the sunlight. Those days were replaced now by desperate instances of survival. "I can't." I shouted back, my voice faltering against the firm reality closing in. "We should leave, Jacob needs you." Mrs. Harrison replied, and her fierce loyalty made my heart both swell and ache. "He'll need you even more if he's going to face what's coming." That I glanced toward the shadows merging with the car's light. Jacob, resolute in his confrontation, stood at the edge of a decision imbued with fate. The realization that I might never see him again seeped into my bones, whispering softly that this could be my last chance, a moment of defiance or surrender. "Let's go." "We can't," I began, but the roar of the engine drowned out my protest as the figures brandishing authority advanced, silhouetted against the glaring headlights. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. In the midst of the chaos, a flicker of kindness emerged. A young woman barely older than me, with a wild mane of hair and a defiant spark in her eye, burst through the shadows from behind a nearby wrecked train car. "This way," she shouted, beckoning urgently. "I know a way out." Mrs. Harrison hesitated for a fraction of a heartbeat, the veteran instinct within her wrestling with the stranger's urgency. "We can't leave Jacob." "It doesn't matter if you leave Jacob," the woman shouted sharply, her fierceness like a fire igniting something within me. "If you stand here, you'll be dragged with him." Trust me. It's harder to fight when you're taken. Either run or stay and watch him disappear. A chill descended as the truth of her words landed heavily within me. There was no way to draw Jacob back without putting everyone at risk. My grip on the fabric of his fate began to loosen, and in its place, something broke open, an inkling of hope paired with a bitter resolve. Mia grabbed my hand tightly. "We can't just leave him," she whispered, a tremor of fright threading through her voice. "No, but we can find him again," I urged, locking eyes with her. "We will come back. We have to trust that he can hold his own, that he knows what he's doing, even if we don't understand." Mrs. Harrison's gaze flickered between us, the weight of her years full of choices weighing heavily. "We don't have much time," she said softly, but her conviction began to seep back into her posture. The woman's eyes hardened with urgency. "They won't stop until they get what they want. They know he's here." With each passing second, uncertainty gnawed at my gut, yet I found a pulse, a roar of urgency. "We have to go," I said firmly, harnessing the fear that had immobilized me moments before. Jacob's choice hung heavily on my heart, tethered by fear and strength, but I could not let it drag us down into despair. With one last glance at the figure of him standing on the brink, I turned to the young woman. "Let us," in a flurry, we skidded away from the looming shadows, darting behind the remnants of the rail yard. My heart raced, not just for the hope of escape, but for the fear that time was running out, that I might still lose him. The sounds of the car's engine faded behind us, mingling with a desperate echo of my name that rang through the air like a warning bell. Just as we slipped into the safety of the dilapidated train cars, a single, searing thought crashed through my mind. What if Jacob had made a choice that would change everything for us, a choice that might sever the ties that had bound us through fear and love? Alike. Mia's breath hitched beside me as we crouched in the shadows, waiting for the chaos to subside. "What if we can't find him again?" she whispered, her voice choking with fear. That we waited, pressing our backs against the cold metal of the train car, hearts drumming in symphony with the cacophony behind us. Suddenly, the lights from the car flared brighter on our hidden forms, and my gut dropped as I realized they were searching for us now, too. The figure of the young woman, barely a flicker against the harsh illumination, seemed to hesitate. "This way," she urged, a hint of regret in her voice as she pulled us with her, and then just before I could take a step I heard it. A single chilling cry slicing through the air that would echo in my nightmares forever. No. "Don't take me. Let me go." It was Jacob. My heart stopped as the ground beneath me felt like it plunged into the abyss, echoing the fracture of the very world around us. He was still fighting, but now he was trapped. He was in danger, and I had chosen to run. As my pulse quickened, I found myself frozen in uncertainty. The light at the end of this chaotic tunnel seemed to dim, becoming a mere flicker against the full scale of the impending storm. I was left standing at the edge of choice again, where shadows loomed and the darkness whispered promises of despair, while Jacob's desperate voice fought to chip away at my resolve. The engine of the luxury car faded into silence as panic coursed through me, alive and vibrant, threatening to shatter the fragile shell I had built around my fear. Jacob's voice reverberated in my ears, a haunting melody filled with anguish that threatened to pull me down into the depths of doubt. "No. Don't take me. Let me go." Mia's eyes met mine, wide and glistening with unshed tears. Her breath came quick and uneven, and I felt the weight of her fear pressing down on my chest. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice quavering with the trembling echoes of Jacob's cries. "That we can't." I choked on my words, my resolve faltering again. Leaving Jacob behind felt like a betrayal, like I was willingly severing the bond between us. But the urgency of the young woman's presence yanked me back into the present. "Trust me," she urged, her voice more determined now, a flicker of fierce conviction igniting in her eyes. "They'll be here any second. We need to move, or your friend's fight will become a death sentence for all of you." "Where do we even go?" I demanded, my frustration boiling over with a mix of despair and helplessness, every second passing punctuated by Jacob's desperate pleas clawing at my heart. She pointed toward a jagged pathway leading away from the train cars, cloaked in shadows and uncertainty. This way. The way out is just ahead. There's a hideout I know of, but we have to hurry. I hesitated, torn between the sanctuary she offered and the distant, desperate sound of Jacob's struggle. But deep down, my instinct shouted that we had to escape, that we had to emerge from the darkness to help him only if we were alive. I swallowed hard, realizing the bitter truth. We might be the one light in his dark tunnel. With a sudden, sharp inhalation, I took Mia's hand, feeling her squeeze back a lifeline in a torrent of chaos. "We'll find him," I assured her, my voice steadier than I felt. My words were a promise I willed myself to believe, a thin thread to keep hope alive, even if it felt like a fragile strand on the edge of a precipice. That we dove into the shadows with the stranger leading the way, our footsteps muffled against the cold, hard ground. Each step was heavy, burdened with the weight of our choices, the echo of Jacob's voice a chilling reminder of everything at stake. The dim light from the car faded behind us, swallowed by the night, but the darkness felt suffocating. Breath after shaky breath filled my lungs, a clumsy attempt to steady myself against the uncertainty that loomed ahead. The dissonance of the chase had fallen behind us, but I felt no relief, only an encroaching dread that clawed at my thoughts. Why are they after him? I finally asked, forcing my voice through the muffled fear that hung in the air, unsure if it was the right question or simply an attempt to shield myself from the unknown. The young woman glanced back, her expression serious. "He's not just any target. He's tangled in something far worse than you can imagine, a web of power, struggles and consequences." "You're saying he's valuable?" Mia interjected, her voice rising with a nervous edge. "Not valuable. Dangerous," the woman replied, her eyes filled with knowledge I yearned to tap into but feared comprehending. "And it's his own making. If they have any hold on him, their grip cannot be easily broken." That I stumbled over that revelation, tethered by the truth that Jacob had chosen this path. Was this fight his doing? Had his decisions led him into the very chaos that now threatened to consume us all? Guilt mixed with dread, bubbling up in my throat. Could I have seen the signs earlier, stepped in, intervened before everything had spiraled out of control? And then I remembered Jacob's fierce resolve, the strength that lay beneath his bravado. It wasn't always for himself, it had been for us, for protection against monsters lurking in the shadows. "But we have to help him," I urged, my voice rising with the urgency of our situation. "We can return for him." The young woman stopped, her eyes blazing with the heat of impending danger. "If he's caught, there might be no coming back for any of us. We have to keep moving." With renewed urgency, we sprinted forward now, a frantic push against the weight of despair that threatened to consume me. As we careened through the darkness, a burden rested upon me heavier than any fear. I could not abandon him. And then, in a heartbeat, a sound shattered the night. A low growl, an engine roaring to life, angry and insistent. "Run!" she barked, and we dove ahead, a rush of adrenaline pulling us through the night's embrace, the sudden spring of terror lending us wings. Desperate, wild, and fueled by a fear I could not contain, I glanced back over my shoulder. The glowing light of the luxury car reignited, shimmering through the darkness like a predatory beast hunting in the shadow, its glare searching for foils to all they sought to claim. That it would find us, or worse, it would find Jacob. Just as I turned, something broke in the distance, a thunderous crash, the sound of metal on metal, followed by a sharp gasp that froze time itself in my chest. The cacophony of anguish rose through the air, too familiar, and too terrible to ignore. It was not a cry for help, but a growl of indignation resonating as if Jacob was fighting back with everything he had. "This way!" the woman cried again, as we pressed forward, twisting against the night's edges. But my resolve weakened. Jacob was still out there, and somewhere within the maelstrom, I could feel the precarious nature of our connection slipping away, a thread tugging at my heart, at my spirit, at our very lives. Finally, just as we reached the tree-line, the weight of expectation settled like a blanket, shrouding everything in a silence that turned my blood cold. I had one last chance to turn back and fight. Moving past the final shadows, I faltered, torn between two worlds, the one I had hoped to escape and the one where Jacob's fierce spirit still raged against the darkness, threatening to swallow him whole. Something within me screamed to dive back into that fray, to chase down the light, to let nothing extinguish the fire that burned within him. And as doubt threatened to snuff out that ember, I took a breath, steeling myself against the chill of uncertainty, but before I could make that choice, an echo reverberated through the air, and my heart plummeted. A figure stepped out from behind the wreckage. Another man, tall and imposing, eyes darkened with intent. "Stop them," he commanded, and just like that, I realized my choice was not mine to make. With frantic breaths and a heart racing away from hope, I knew with a gut-wrenching certainty that life as I knew it had once again splintered into chaos. And in that moment, as the shadows of my past surged forward like an encroaching tide, I could only whisper a silent promise to Jacob wherever he was. The chill in the air felt like a knife against my skin, the cold seeping into my bones as shadows twisted and swirled around us. My heart hammered in my chest, a frantic rhythm echoing the impending danger. I barely had time to process the command before the man lunged forward, his silhouette stark against the flickering remnants of light. "Run." Mia's voice was a beacon, pulling me from the web of dread threatening to ensnare me. The urgency in her tone rekindled my instincts, propelling me forward again, abandoning fears like weights left behind. That we dashed into the trees, our footsteps hurried whispers against the ground. Branches scratched at my arms, leaving trails of discomfort that seemed insignificant compared to the chaos unfolding behind us. The raspy sound of my breath filled the void, each inhalation a reminder that life pulsed fiercely, even amidst pandemonium. As we plunged deeper into the embrace of the woods, the night around us thickened, silhouettes lurking just beyond reach. I forced myself to focus on the geography of the escapee, a tangle of roots and leaves to navigate, the sound of Mia's quickened breaths like an anchor in the tumultuous sea of uncertainty. Suddenly, the air shifted, and a rustling above pulled my gaze skyward. A raven, perched ominously on a branch, its black feathers a stark contrast against the moonlit sky, cawed, its voice piercing through the haze. The sharp sound sent an unexpected shiver down my spine, a warning, perhaps, or a reminder of the ominous weight of fate hanging over us. "Over there," Mia gasped, her finger pointing to a narrow clearing ahead, where the ground dipped like a small valley, hidden by thickets. We rushed toward it, but with every stride, my mind flickered back to Jacob, the warmth of his laughter, the strength in his eyes, the way he always fought for what was right, even when it put him in the line of fire. Suddenly, something explosive broke through the trees behind us, the crash of branches and the echoing roar of an engine drowning out the serene whispers of the forest. Someone was pursuing us, and they were gaining ground. I could practically feel the hunt in the air, the insatiable hunger of predators drawn to the scent of vulnerability. "Do you think they—" I trailed off, unable to voice the thought that haunted me. Terrible possibility that they wouldn't let Jacob go. Mia's expression softened for just a moment, the glimmer of hope faltering. "I don't know. We can't think about that now, we have to keep moving," but the relentless questions clawed at my mind. What had Jacob done to put him in this position? Had his fight to protect us turned into his downfall? As much as I ached to hold on to hope, dread settled like a dense fog, obstructing the light. That we stumbled into the clearing, the forest parting to bathe us in the starlight. A sense of disorientation swept over me. His newfound visibility felt like a cruel joke, illuminating our vulnerability in the face of impending doom. "Up the hill!" Mia exclaimed, and before I could grasp the difference between safety and sheer survival, we began our rapid ascent, hearts racing in tandem with the fight against our uncertain fate. As I reached the top, a clearing revealed itself, an abrupt end to the trees, a vast expanse of open land stretching out before us. Relief surged through me momentarily, but it was short-lived as I noticed the silhouette of another figure emerging from the dark on the opposite side, eyes glinting with a predatory shine. "Did you think you could escape?" The voice was smooth yet malevolent, an unsettling composition that sent waves of revulsion skimming over my skin. "Back!" Mia shouted, positioning herself between me and the foe, creating an indomitable barrier. "You'll have to go through me." There was fire burning in her eyes, a flicker of courageous defiance that stirred within me, igniting an ember of rebellion. "No one needs to get hurt," he began as he stepped forward, a mere silhouette at first, but with each step, he morphed into a presence too compelling to ignore. Tall and muscular, the glint of amusement in his eyes was shaded with an underlying cruelty, the twisted smile suggesting he relished this game of cat and mouse that had ensnared us. "Leave us alone." I echoed, stepping forward instinctively, my heart clamoring against the shelter of my ribs. This man had no idea who he was dealing with, did he? A hint of curiosity danced behind his cold stare as he sized us up, smirking as if we'd fallen right into a carefully laid trap. You have no idea how deep this goes, do you? Jacob is but a pawn in a much larger game. My breath hitched, the name spiraling around us like a curse. What do you mean? He stepped closer, an intimacy that felt far too threatening, too deliberate. He's tangled in something bigger than you. Something dangerous. Something that you could never comprehend. A lump formed in my throat, desperation clawing at the edges of my resolve. You're lying. His laughter was chilling, echoing against the silent backdrop of the field. Am I? You'll see soon enough. This is just the beginning, and then, just as panic clawed through me, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, the sharp vibration shocking me back to reality. I fished it out, trembling fingers betraying me as I stared at the screen. A message from Jacob. Where are you? I need you now. What had they done to him? The words felt like a lifeline and a blow to the heart at once, igniting a mixture of hope and terror inside me. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a desperate race against fate, the stakes higher than I had ever imagined. The clock was ticking, and while the man before us was a shrouded enigma, my heart warned me that this was not the time to yield to his mockery. Let us go. I shouted, feeling my voice tremble but fiercely resolute. We won't betray Jacob. Brave words. He tilted his head, a glimmer of admiration creeping into his voice amid the coldness. But you will. You'll learn what it means to sacrifice for the ones you love. You will choose, and in that very moment, as he extended a hand toward me with a sinister invitation, an overwhelming realization slammed into me. Whatever was tied to Jacob, I had already become a thread woven into that intricate design. Each choice, each decision, would either pull us back or plunge us deeper into darkness. That I stood frozen, heart pounding, torn by the shadow of what was to come. I was suspended in the weight of his words, a visceral dread creeping over me like a shroud. I felt all my desires for safety and love twisted, locked into an unfathomable game of life and death. This man, this puppet master who toyed with paths unseen, spoke the truth. My heart drummed an urgent rhythm that begged for a decision, every moment teetering between hope and despair, between standing my ground and running into the dark for Jacob.No. I won't let you tear us apart. I shouted, the tremors ricocheting through my chest, my voice crystal clear against the rising winds of uncertainty. I could feel Mia's hand slip tightly into mine, her grip steadying me in the storm of dread that threatened to envelop us both, but I was pushed forward unrelentingly, tethered to the choices Jacob had made, the struggles he faced igniting a defiance deep within my core. I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was a moment of reckoning. You think I'd betray him? You think I'd choose fear? I faced the man's predatory gaze, refusing to buckle under its weight. You know nothing of my connection to him. A flicker of surprise danced behind his icy eyes. And yet here you stand, on the cusp of your own choice. This is the reality of your bond, isn't it? You can play hero, but will that save him? Or will it simply condemn you? Anger surged, fueling my resolve. I stepped closer, igniting what mirth flickered behind his condescending demeanor. No more games. You have no idea what you're up against. I won't let you take him. In that instant, the shadows began to shift and sway around us. The ground felt unsteady, and dread coiled tightly around my gut. My heart raced as the reality of my vulnerability settled in the knowledge that each of us was a pawn on the board of a merciless game, the stakes higher than I ever fathomed. Suddenly, the distant sound of another engine roared to life, slicing through the uncertainty. Every heartbeat seemed to pulse with the urgency to protect Jacob, to disrupt the plans unfolding around us. I turned back toward the woman who had led us into this tangled web. We need to find him. Where is he? Her expression softened, an unexpected warmth glimmering in her eyes, even as danger tugged at the corners of the night. You don't need to look far. He's closer than you think. As if the universe itself had orchestrated this moment, the ground trembled beneath us. A series of thunderous footsteps approached, heralding chaos that sent a ripple of dread cascading through me. The man's eyes darkened, an unmistakable blend of disappointment and contempt etched into his features. Perhaps the pawn has decided to turn against the game. Before I could process the ominous implications, the encroaching figures loomed into view, and I felt Mia's grip tighten in fear. The men from the car, now finally revealed, moved with synchronicity, as if guided by an unseen hand as they encircled us like predators, their intentions holding an air of ruthless certainty. "Let them go," the leader snarled, stepping forward, an aura of authority emanating from him. "What's the game here? You think your bravado can shield you?" All instincts screamed for retreat, yet I stood my ground, my heart racing even as my mind raced through the potential paths of destruction carved out by their presence. But beneath that cacophony, I could hear Jacob's voice in my mind, echoing like a lifeline through the shadows. "This is not just a battle of wills, it's a battle for redemption, for the truth that links us all." The leader's gaze shifted sharply toward me, and as tension crackled in the air, I felt the thread of despair binding together as we faced each other, a tether spun from choices made and sacrifices unmade. "Choose," he commanded with cold authority. "Choose between loyalty and life." A weight settled heavily in my chest, twisting and knotting my resolve. Going back isn't an option. I shouted, channeling every ounce of my conviction, standing between Mia and the encroaching darkness suffocating around us. "I will not cower before you. I will not abandon him." An imperceptible shift passed between us, my courage intermingling with the resolve in Mia's bright eyes. It sparked something within the woman who had guided us there. "Then let's fight. Together," she implored, summoning every ounce of strength coursing through her veins. And just like that, that single spark ignited into a blazing flame. We surged forward, Mia's voice lifting above the chaos, fear momentarily vanquished by bravery. "Fight for Jacob. Fight for us." In that moment, tangible unity solidified between us and unseen force propelling us into the unknown, against all odds, against the past that threatened to drag us under. As shadows stretched and dwindled into the night, our resolve crystallized into something deeper, something unfathomable. The world around us erupted, the echoes of the chase merged with beats of hearts aligned in a fragile yet powerful cohesion. We moved as one, each step a declaration, every stride a defiance against the darkness threatening to swallow us whole. But just as the line of shadows began to crumble before us, a blinding light engulfed the area, illuminating everything in stark clarity. It cast the echoes of Jacob's cries to rise and cascade like a beacon through the atmosphere, resonating deeply within me, and then, right as clarity broke upon us, my heart froze. "Jacob!" I called into the unyielding darkness that blended with the light, my voice straining against the weight of dread that settled into my stomach like lead. "Where are you?" In that space, as silence prevailed, his response echoed back a mixture of mysterious resolve and chilling vulnerability. "I'm here, don't leave me." A sudden rush of adrenaline surged through me. Jacob, tethered to everything I cherished, was alive. Suddenly, my resolve anchored in something greater, a promise that glimmered in the distance, proximity unbroken despite the tides highly threatening to tear us apart. With our combined strength propelling us forward, I caught a final glimpse of the operatives shifting uneasily in the illumination, uncertainty dancing in their eyes. And in sharp contrast, I felt the bond solidifying around me, the chain of people I loved linking us together, breaking through the haze of fear that once shackled me. In unison, we charged ahead right through the agonizing disarray of shadows as we reached Jacob and pulled him back toward us, a solid force of unity storming beneath the certainty of our resolve. As we surged, my heart thundered to the rhythm of hope, and everything that existed prior unraveled into the room left behind, bursting forth the memories that had once seemed insurmountable, yet lingering in the distant shadows. I caught a smile on the corners of the leader's lips, a promise of vengeance that impended like a thundercloud, murmuring whispers of betrayal, rippling echoes of choices that pushed ever wider the gulf between light and dark. And yet in my heart, knitted into the very core of what bound us, came a realization: as long as we held on to each other, as long as hope soared high enough to create spaces where shadows once reigned, we were never alone. Together, we would defy the darkness that sought to unravel us. Together, I declared resolutely as we broke from the shadows, the pulse of possibility ahead igniting a way into the horizon, it was each step forward into the unknown that unveiled a flicker of what truly mattered. With renewed vigor, we surged ahead, me, Mia, and Jacob, so close now that nothing wicked could unearth us, accepting, fighting, believing that even amidst shadows, light could just as easily guide us home. The moment hung unsteady as I echoed the last words that surged through my heart, whatever it takes, we fight through the dark to find our light. It resonated amidst the howling winds, as we dove deeper into the night, committed to overcoming the chaos that lay ahead, forever tethered by the spirit of hope anchored across our paths. And as the reality of something profound flashed across my mind, I understood through the swirls of fear that no matter the obstacles ahead, I could face them with fierce love, unwavering resolve. Me heart, illuminated by a singular truth, would always fight for those I loved, united against the darkness. Always.